We'll get started. Vice Mayor was talking way too much, so we're a little late. But we'll start off with the scooter ordinance discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everybody. We wanted to touch base with you before we go into the first reading on this ordinance to make sure that you were comfortable with the approach that we're taking and that we gathered your feedback correctly. And then, of course, probably as important is determining whether or not you want to do 3 successive meetings, getting these readings done in a 3-week period, or in a traditional approach where it takes 6 weeks to get these ordinances passed. And so we weren't real clear whether or not that direction was determined in our last discussion on this topic. So with that, if I could get Mr. Henley to give you a heads up on some of the major changes that we thought we heard from you last Tuesday night, and then of course determine what direction you want to go in terms of the reading process itself.
Mr. Henley?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. We really made a lot of changes based on our last discussion. We really had a lot of suggestions from you and trying to determine where to come down. So basically we streamlined the ordinance at times. So the new ordinance that we have before you this evening for your consideration basically takes out references to some of the things like rollerblades, roller skates, that type of thing. And so we're not going to regulate those here at all. And it sounds like they're already being used in the sidewalks all over the town anyway. So they are out. That seems like that's one of the big changes. Another one of the big changes is that there is no street or streets which scooters or e-bikes or bicycles would be prohibited from going into downtown area. So that seems like that would give more flexibility to the riders down there. And then one of the other items that we had talked about was the amount of the fees. And of course we had been in negotiations with Bird Ride Inc. Coming into town, and they had presented an MOU to begin with, and we'd gone back and forth a little bit and had come up with a contract, and they had agreed to pay $3,000 plus $25 per scooter, originally talking about coming in with 50 scooters. And so we had looked at that and thought, well, if that's the case, they're paying about $85 per scooter, but of course that would go down if they were to bring in more scooters. If they brought in 75 scooters, then that would take that price of that down on a per scooter basis. And so we did this mathematical computation basically just to try to get an idea of where Bird, who is a national company, would be looking to pay, had agreed basically to pay with respect to bringing their scooters into the city of Casper. We did some original, well, we called around at a number of places, and a lot of places we could not find out, and these are new ordinances, so they're not in the ordinance, national ordinance database. But Cheyenne had basically an annual fee of $200 and then $5 per vehicle, and Rock Springs just had a lump sum $500 per fee. We then said, Rapid City, we couldn't get information from them. Billings, we're not sure if we have that or not. We again didn't hear back. So we called Spokane and Seattle, got some documentation from those two Washington cities. Spokane, they do theirs on a 75-cent every day the vehicle is in operation. And so if it were in operation 300 days a year, that would be $225 per scooter. Obviously, you're going to have some snow days or maybe rain days in Spokane or in Seattle. 75 cents for 225 days, which had to be $168.75 per scooter. Seattle, and we talked about this the last time, they really have kind of a very high type of fee system. They say just to have the permit issued is $232, and then just for a renewal would be $176, and then after that you would have well, to get the permit issued, then you're still, they charge an hourly basis based on the review of the permits, and then they have $150 per permitted scooter per year. And so we have in the proposed ordinance here, $90 per scooter per year, per calendar year. And I think is the reason to talk about that is that they're using our public right-of-ways. And remember, we talked not that long ago about restaurants and cafes using our public right-of-ways. And really that was not the use that was given when we were deeded that property. And that we didn't feel comfortable doing that, but just letting people use it for their own benefit. These people are using it for their own benefit, not only though to park their vehicles, they don't have to go get a garage or a warehouse to put their 50 or 150 scooters in, and how much would that cost them? So they're using your sidewalks, your constituent sidewalks for that purpose, and what great marketing is it to have your product right at the, literally, feet of the customers who you want to attract when they come out of the bar, they want to go to the trails and things of that nature. So it seems to me that that is not an unreasonable fee. Of course, you can take it up, take it down, whatever. But that's kind of the thought process that went in there. The good thing about scooters, though, and there's a distinguishment between scooters and cafes and the like, and that this is an alternative form of transportation, which you were also concerned about at the last meeting. You said, hey, look, this will bring some benefit to the city as well, both for commuters as well as for tourists. So with that, I'll take any other questions you have.
I'm assuming if I own one personally, I'm gonna have to then start licensing it at $90 a year via the city clerk.
Not unless you want to. You have to be a provider to do this. To be a provider, you actually are in the business. And
Okay.
so you're actually doing the dockless scooters. So it's
Okay.
not for the private folks, or it's not for the people at the point of delivery either.
Councilman Nell.
I have an issue. As a council,
No.
we agreed. As a council, listen, as a council, we agreed not to charge the $3,000. So now what we've done is just turned around and stuffed it into the permit cost. And that's not appropriate. That's not what we voted on as a council. That's not what we gave thumbs up to. And if you compare us to Cheyenne and Rock Springs, we are way out of line. Way out of line. Rock Springs is a, if you could, can you scroll that back so I could see that? That it was like a $5
It's right
fee.
$500.
No, it's a $5 fee. It's a $200 annual fee and a $5 dock fee in Cheyenne.
Right.
Yeah, and we're charging $95 per scooter. That just seems, that $200 annual fee covers all 100 or however many they have. So when you break that down to the amount they're bringing us, it's $2 a scooter, and then it's $5 to license it. So they're charging $7 a scooter. We're charging 90. We're out of line. They only get the
Or
places.
Cheyenne is out of line.
Huh?
Or
No, I don't
Cheyenne
think
is out of
so.
line.
Because if you look at the other license fees in the bigger city, they get to use those year round. You don't get to do that here. They have May, June, July, August, and September at best. So we're charging an exorbitant amount of money for them to use it not even half a year. And as a council, we voted against that. And yet we just found a unique little way to stuff it back in there. So I have a problem with it.
Councilmember Pollock.
I do want to clarify, I didn't vote against it. I don't have an issue with licensing fees. I have an issue with a flat fee because that disadvantages small operators versus large operators. I think it's perfectly reasonable to discuss what the fee should be. I prefer it in this format where it's a per scooter fee. I'm happy to think about changing that fee or addressing it one way or the other. As far as I can tell, it is all over the map in terms of how people are charging for these. So I don't know who's out of line. I don't know what makes sense for their business model. It seems that this makes sense, otherwise they wouldn't have agreed to paying that much in the beginning. I want to make it so that it makes sense with multiple people's business models, not just one particular company's business model. So, I mean, those are my considerations, but when I was discussing it last time, I don't have any qualms with charging a fee, what that fee should be. I just don't like the flat fee as opposed to a per scooter licensing fee.
Councilwoman Ingebretson. Oh.
This obviously is would be appropriate for discussion on the floor. We're not trying to steal your thunder to have it here, but basically just I think it's kind of to that the question is, do we want to have 3 quick successive, or is this going to be long discussions and that type of thing? That's why we brought it to the pre-meeting. So do we want to try to do it the 3, or are we going to have enough discussion we need to have a week between each meeting? I think that's kind of where we are. But I think this is a good discussion you guys are having.
Councilman Gambrell.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to advocate that we take the normal time to work through the ordinances, because my concern with this the entire time has been that we're moving too quickly and being pressured. You know, I understand the season is short and Berg would like to get them on the road as quickly as possible, but the more independent research I've done and the more people I've spoken to in the community, I just have concerns with how quickly we're moving with this. And honestly, the ordinances is fine, but the contract with Bird is something that I don't think I'm sold on still. So I'm going to advocate that we take our time and do our due diligence and not rush this.
And that was a good point. We don't have, you know, this ordinance assumes we had no contract with Bird, kind of based on our discussion last time. We certainly can revive that. It was something they had proposed with the MOU, at least that concept originally, but we have now kind of withdrawn that based on our discussion last time. So right now we're trying to do what was in the contract per the ordinance.
Councilwoman Ingebrigtsen.
I just want to clarify, so all of these fees and stuff, so is this paid, all of this is paid out on a yearly basis? Or is just what you're basically promoting is the $3,000 annually, and then does this come to the city on a monthly basis?
You know, and we're not promoting that. That's not part of this ordinance at all. That was what Bird had agreed to in our proposed ordinance. When we were negotiating back and forth, that was what they had agreed to. So, but that's not part of it. I think probably in consideration of Councilperson Pollock's considerations about, you know, trying to make sure that the large versus the small, not one was advantaged
Right.
over the other. So that isn't part of it at all. We're just looking at a per scooter charge right now. Trying to make it more simple than that was. That's for sure.
The Gordon's Rents, I'm sorry, I've got to say, the Gordon's rents these scooters. Do
Yep.
we have any agreement with them at all for the same thing? Because they're using the scooters on city sidewalks and streets and things.
But they're not leaving them there. That's a
Not
big
dockless.
thing that's different
Big
here. They're
difference.
not leaving them there. These ones would be left out on city sidewalks. 2 very different things.
Mr. Manager.
And Mr. Mayor, Council, I think that needs to be really, really clear. The biggest part of their business plan is using the public right-of-way
Yep.
as their storage facility, as their place of operation. And so hence the reason we're talking about permit fees, we're talking about per scooter fees and those kinds of things, because they're using the public domain as their point of operation. Similar to franchise agreements like we talked about last time. When they're using the public domain as a part of their operation, we think the public deserves to be paid for the use of that public space. Gordon's doesn't do that. And that's a big, big difference. Thank you.
Councilman Nell.
And I do agree that they should pay a fee, and there's no question. I just want to make sure, and my biggest fear is that if we overcharge them and it doesn't become feasible, they don't even make it through their first year and they're gone, and we've lost them. And so my ideology is make it affordable so that they're here. And don't forget, it's our constituents that are using these things, that already pay the taxes on these sidewalks and these roads. And so I just want to make sure that it's affordable where they'll come back and where it'll invite other competition to come in, like Lime and whoever else. And I do think, I disagree with Councilmember Gamroth. I think this needs to be, it's just an ordinance. It needs to be put through. They need to have an opportunity to run their business in the time that's left, and they advocated for that. And I think we should be able to do that. I don't think that's out of line with what we're doing.
Okay, so we can have further discussion on the floor as far as the ordinance goes itself. The question is, do you want to do the full three readings on it, which would take 6 weeks, or do you want to do the 3-week modified, if you will, route of going that way?
I'd personally like to do the modified one to give them an opportunity to operate their business.
All right, so those in favor of the modified route, give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Okay, and then for the full reading? All right.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yep.
All right, move on to International Building Code, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. What we wanted to make clear was with regard to the risk we run of rejecting the reading process, if you will, of adopting the International Building Code consistent with what the state does. The problem that we have is if we do kill this ordinance process and do not adopt what the state has passed, we will lose local authority in terms of inspections and so forth, and issuing building permits and all those kinds of things. That authority then reverts to the state, and we will be reliant upon the state to promote development in Casper. And so I just want to be really, really clear that that's the risk we run. And my personal opinion, having gone through a portion of that kind of thing in my past, is that it is not builder friendly, it is not developer friendly, and it doesn't promote smooth, fluid business processes for development to take place. And so that is a concern of mine, and I just want to be clear that that's the risk we run if we lose that local authority to do this. So.
And I know this is for my benefit. And I have been searching for a long time now. I'm trying to just figure out the differences between 2018 and 21.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the issue, is that you can't find it. And so we haven't seen the differences. We haven't even seen a brief synopsis of, this is what was already in place, this is what we're passing. So we're asked to pass something that we don't even know what the differences are, and then we're going to pass an ordinance to people, and then what? And you're gonna start finding them, but none of us even know what those differences are? I find that kind of confusing for me. It's just like, I would like to at least see what our differences are. And I don't think that's not unreasonable, but I have been personally searching myself for all the differences, and it is not an easy thing to find.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, you're 100% correct. And if you look on the screen, that memo that we produced a number of weeks ago does highlight those differences that the two sets of code have that are, typically things that we deal with. And so we do have that lined out in those memos. We can reproduce that memo again for you if you'd like, but it is there to the best of our knowledge with respect to those differences. And those differences are not significant, and so that's probably why they're challenging to find, because they're pretty, for the most part, inconsequential.
Vice Mayor Pacheco.
Yeah, I understand where Lisa's coming from, and I get that. I know we've kind of been down this road. A few years ago we did this. A few years ago we went through this, and we certainly had a pretty big blow up community-wide when people had come to speak about it, and so I understand. I also know that the city staff also do their due diligence, and sometimes the council does put their faith in the city staff, and they do a very good job of making sure that things are in there, and they present it to us and say, this is good to go, and we have to do our research, which I agree that we have to do that. But I know we've been down this road before, so.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor. Councilman Nell.
Isn't it true, Carter, that we don't have a choice anyway? The state's already adopted them.
Correct.
I mean, it's, so it doesn't matter if we like what's in there or we don't. It's a matter of law, correct?
Yes.
So
Yes.
we either vote it in and agree with the state, or we don't, and we give them all the control, so.
And income.
Yeah,
all the
correct.
permits.
Correct. So yeah, this is it doesn't matter if you like what's in there or not. We have to approve this. We don't have a
Well,
choice.
I get that, and so that's not my issue at all. It's just that, so I sell real estate, I've got property management and stuff, so I'm going to be holding all of my tenants and owners and everything to a code I can't find. That's my issue. And then when we have code enforcers and things, and then it's just like, well, where is this code? And then everybody's now searching for codes and things. And so then it becomes just this whole thing when I guess it's just like 2018, I understand that they're making changes and tweaking it and making things better and whatnot. So it's not that I have an issue with passing the code. It's just that in 3 years, I'm probably gonna ask the same question, guys. I'm gonna wanna know what the differences are. It's just, I think that's not unreasonable, just because we're gonna pass something for the whole citizens, but nobody really knows what all of the codes are, and then what, we just send them a bill and say, well, you violated some code, go find it. And it's a challenge, and so that's all I'm saying, is just, I just wanted to know the differences, and I don't, this isn't all of the changes, this is just a couple of them. But, so, no, I don't believe I'm gonna get my answer, but that's just what my problem is just that I just wanted to know what all the codes were, so that we knew. And I mean, Steve builds houses and stuff, so we're changing the codes for buildings, so do you know what the new building codes are gonna be?
Well, I'll look them up if I need to know it though. That's the
So,
whole
but
thing, I
that's
mean.
the thing, is that we have to try to find them, and it's difficult to find.
But the point is, that you could take it into the law enforcement realm of things. Laws passed, do you think everybody pays attention to laws that get passed? No. But then they go out and violate the law, and yeah, they get a ticket or they get arrested for it. Ignorance to the law is, it's not an excuse.
There's no excuse for it, and that's why I'm just trying to get educated. I'm just trying to just know more, is all.
But to not pass something, because I'm sure there's a ton of changes in the last 3 years. I'm sure there's a lot of changes that have taken place. But to keep the public on top of everything that it takes place, they have responsibility at their own level. You can find it. You can go find the International Building Code, and you can go through it themselves. I mean, it's out there. So, Councilman Cap.
I believe our
I was just gonna say, thank you, Mayor, council members. The actual digital code is online, and we did forward it to the city attorney, all of the International Building Code, the International Fire Code, the Internet. So those, I thought they were pushed out to all council members.
They
were.
Okay,
I
so
thought we
the
had-
digital codes and the 18 and 21, you can access them both on that same website. So you can't print them, but you can actually view them at that point. So they're available there.
One other thing that I would point out too is the people that put these codes out, that is their business. So if they don't update these periodically, they actually are putting themselves out of business. So if I can figure out a subtle change every 3 years, then I've got all of these people that just suddenly became new customers again, so that they perpetuate themselves. They're building an empire by continually changing these codes. That's my opinion.
And thereby, it's difficult to just keep up with them.
But
You don't have to work
your
in
electric
industry.
contractors know what the changes are for the electrical part. Your plumbing contractors know those. Your building department, structural people know the structural part of it. So when you send a set of plans in, that's part of what your permit fee is going for, is for the review of those plans. So the people that are actually in charge of enforcing the codes know what the codes are. And if you deal with reputable contractors, you will wind up not getting fined.
Okay, we can have further discussion about it on the floor. Do we have anything else?
No, sir.
Okay. Item 2 by minute action, excuse the absence of Councilmember Johnson.
Second.
Moved by Vice Mayor Pacheco, second by Councilmember Pollock. Please cast your vote. And please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passed.
Council meetings are also televised and can be viewed on cable channel 192. Would you please join the Vice Mayor in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The chair would entertain a motion to approve by minute action the minutes of the July 6, 2021 regular council meeting as published in the Casper Star Tribune on July 14th, 2021.
So moved.
Moved by Councilwoman Ingebretson, second by Councilman Gamroth. Any amendments? Please cast your vote. And please record the vote.
With council members Kathy and Pollock abstaining, motion passed.
Chair would entertain a motion to approve by minute action the minutes of the July 6, 2021 executive session.
So moved.
Moved by Councilwoman Ingebretson, second by Councilman Gamroth. Any amendments? All right, please cast your vote. And please record the vote.
With council members Kathy and Pollock abstaining, motion passed.
Chair would entertain a motion to approve by minute action the July 20th, 2021 bills and claims as audited by City Manager Napier.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councilmember Pollock, second by Councilwoman Lutz. Any abstention or nay votes? Please cast your vote. And please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passed.
Now is the time we invite anyone in the audience who wishes to speak with the council to come forward. As stated on the first page of the agenda, we ask the following. Please state your name and address. Direct all questions or comments to the mayor and only the mayor. No personal attacks on staff or council will be tolerated. Council will not respond to personnel matters. These will be referred to our city manager. Questions posed by speakers may or may not be responded to by council members. Presentations will be limited to 5 minutes, and the duplication of speakers will not be allowed, nor will time extensions be permitted. Please note that public hearings and ordinances each have their own comment period, so please hold your comments on these items until we have reached them. Is there anyone that would like to speak to council? Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Robert Cook. I live at 99 Honeysuckle in Paradise, Wyoming Valley. And what I like to address to you is that there's a drug house across the street. It's been raided so many times. The other day it was like 9 police cars, an FBI agent, K9 units, you know, guns drawn, and that I can't count how many times they've done this and busted these people, and then and the next day they're out. You know, it just goes on and on. You know, it's to the point where the people next to them are moving out. One fella's been there for 50 years or more, you know, in the same house. Now he's moving out. It just seems like nothing's being done about it. This house is a known drug house. Even the policeman told me that there was fentanyl and heroin and all kinds of stuff coming out of there. Some guy that was staying over there went over to Marigold a couple of streets over, did an armed robbery on somebody that I guess they beat him up or something. He run back to the house, took off. You know, we got grandkids, great grandkids, you know, we'd love them to come over. We don't want to bring them over there in that environment. People are moving out of the neighborhood, and this has been going on for about 2 or 3 years now. It's always different groups. People come in and out of there all hours of day, night. People come in from Colorado, from Montana, from all over the place, from Texas, you know, coming over to that house. They come in and out of their different vehicles. They come in with empty backpacks, come out with full backpacks constantly. I don't know what they're doing. You know, I really don't care what they're doing. I just don't want it in my neighborhood. Nobody in that neighborhood wants it. And the police, they're doing a great job, you know, busting them and everything. But I talked to a policeman today, one of them that was on that bus the other day. He said, well, you need to pressure them to talk to the DA push the maximum charges on these people. So they can just keep running. It's tearing the neighborhood down. I moved out there because I thought it was a nice neighborhood, Paradise Valley, you know. Everybody wants to move there. And now it's being overrun by drugs, thugs, you know. And it's getting worse. And pretty soon, if nothing is done, it's just going to be, the property value is all going to fall. Nobody's going to want to move out there with all this going on. And it goes on and on and on and has not stopped. Nothing has been done. It just seems like, well, I ain't going to say, because I get myself in trouble, but something, please, can something be done about that house? It's just not that. There's 5 houses, stash houses out there. They go from house to house to house and house, move stuff around, you know, and the police know it. The FBI knows it. The DEA knows it. I don't care what they do. I just don't want it in my neighborhood. I don't want it right across the street. You know, we want it out of that neighborhood. We want that stopped. We would like that house boarded up. And whoever owns the house, I don't know who owns the house, but with Zach, the guy that owns the house, I don't know his full name, but he's part of the problem, you know, like I said, but I don't know what mortgage company, I don't know when there's a drug bust like that. It just seemed like they would seize everything, board the house up. In most places they do that. Here, no. It just seems like they got some inside people to help them out every time. Within hours, they're out every time. But I'm just asking, please, is there something you can do about that house? My good neighbors, good people, been there for years, moving out of the neighborhood. Pretty soon it's just going to be a crack neighborhood, you know, just a ghetto. It's Paradise Valley, oh my God. You know, it was a nice neighborhood at one time. And it's turning into North Casper. North Casper is way better than this place now. And I don't know why it's happening, but I'm just asking you, please, can you do something? And 98 Honeysuckle. And there's like 5 other houses there. Plumera, up the street, there's 5 of them in that neighborhood right there. They're all connected.
Okay. Anybody with any questions? Okay. Thank you, sir.
I'm Kathy Cook. I live at 99 Honeysuckle. Robert Cook's my husband. And I can't even see my grandkids because of what's going on out there. It used to be really nice the first 2 years. And then all of a sudden, Zach bought the house across the street from us. And all it's been doing is doing drugs. And don't know what to do. I bought the house across the street from, because I love the house. But I'm paying for something that I can't enjoy now because there's always traffic going from 1:30 to 4 o'clock in the morning. And just like my husband said, backpacks, empty backpacks. When they come out, they're completely full. So we just need something done to where, I mean, our neighbors are leaving because of it. They don't feel safe. I'm beginning to where I don't feel safe, and I've worked hard all my life. And I can't do it anymore because I'm up half of the night because traffic. And then my grandkids, I can't even see them, my little ones, because of that. My son will not bring them, and he's a preacher, and he will not bring them over because of that. But we need something done. So please, please, try to get something done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Dale Cook. I live at 43 Honeysuckle. I know what she's talking about. It's all night long. The traffic up and down that street, like I said, there's 5 houses over there. Something needs to be done. And they told us the other day when they were there that they were going to start patrolling. We have not seen maybe one patrol car in the whole time this all this last bust. And then there's a black car that hangs around. I don't know if it's in them, you know, watching it. But I haven't seen it for the last 2 days. It's not, but there's people like Kathy just said, there's people coming, going all the time out of there, in and out. Because I go down and check her dogs, and I'm afraid to even go down there anymore because I don't know what they'll do. Just like the other day, I was out front of my house, and the guy that came out, or was one of them that was busted, he come down by my house, and he says, and I said hi to him, or he said hi back to me, or he said hi, and I said hi, and then it was just like a war was on. You know, I'm not repeating what he said, and, you know, all I did was trying to be nice, you know, but it was unreal. And then I went back in the house because I didn't know what he'd do. And then, like I said, every time we call the police department, it seems like they never show up until after everything is, you know, just like the other day I called them. They never showed up. Not a one of them. Like I said, she's got grandkids that I don't know what they'd do if, you know, you don't know. I'm just saying we need to do something before it's too late, before somebody gets shot or one of them little kids get hurt. And there is a lot of them on that street. But like I said, there's 5 houses right there. One right behind that one on Honeysuckle. And that's how they're coming from the back. They've got the fence down and they're coming through the back fence and going in that house. So.
Okay. All right, thanks, sir.
I just wish you guys to do something about it. And, you know, when we do call them, I wish they'd show up instead of waiting until they're all vanished into thin air and then they show up. Or they don't show up at all, one of the two. So, we need to do something about it before it's too late. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jeff Long. I live on 2111 Kingsborough Road. I'd like to talk to you guys about an issue I see with the municipal court. I got a speeding ticket June 2nd. Police officer was great, polite, professional. Had my wife try to go pay the ticket. The day before court, I had to go to court. They told her that she couldn't pay it. So she called me. This was early in the morning. I said, fine, I'll show up. I'll come after work, take a little time off, get it paid. So I left about 3:30, a little before, and went down to try to pay it. And of course, they're closed. So at that point, I felt I had to go to court because we'd put this off because I was out of town. And so that next morning, on July 2nd, I went to court, pleaded no contest, went in to pay, paid for it, and then asked them why it was that my wife couldn't pay my speeding ticket. And they told me, well, first the gal that took my payment was great. And when I asked her the question, she went and got somebody else. And that person came out and told me that somehow somebody had paid a fine for somebody else who wanted to go to court, and it turned out that he couldn't because he'd already pleaded guilty because somebody had already paid it. I don't know. But I said I didn't understand how that worked, but I wanted to understand, so I asked, is it a judge's order? And she said, yeah, it's a judge's order. So I said, fine, I'd like to see a copy of that judge's order. She goes, oh no, it's not a judge's order. So I said, okay, must be a policy then. Is it a policy? Yeah, it's a policy. Great, I'd like a copy of the policy. Oh no, it's not a policy either. I said, well look, you can't just make up rules. It's got to be in writing somewhere. No, that's just the way it is. That's how we do it now. And she shrugged her shoulders and left. So, and that was on the 2nd, in the morning of the 2nd. So I came back right before lunch. Here again, took more time off work. I'm already several hours into hours off work, and came back, submitted a Freedom of Information Act request, or a FOIA, asking for the policy, the law, the judge's order, or whatever, and submitted that. A few days later, I got a letter from Nicole, who was the gal apparently that I talked to, I think is the clerk of court, and in her letter, she said that under the Wyoming Rules of Criminal Procedure, 11A and 31D says that only the defendant can pay. I know that's not correct. I can read the law. So I'm not happy with that. I believe she's wrong, so I did a little more investigating. I called 7 cities in the state of Wyoming. I can remember 6 of them, but 100% of them said, sure, you can come pay somebody else's ticket, not a problem. Not only that, but I asked them what their hours were. All of them said they were open 8 to 5. All of them said there's no COVID restrictions. So that only applies to the city of Casper, apparently. So at this point, I don't understand, is Nicole an attorney at law? Because she's giving legal advice that I believe is incorrect. And I think I got denied service. I don't think that should happen to the people of Casper. I also think that if I have to follow the laws, I think the city should have to follow the same laws.
Okay.
If you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Doesn't look like we have any questions. Thank you, sir. Yep.
I didn't have questions, but I'd like to comment.
Councilman Gamrot.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for everyone. Well, maybe we have a couple more, so maybe this is preemptive, but I appreciate you sharing your concerns with us. The folks that live on Honeysuckle, that's in our ward, and so I see the chief isn't here tonight, but that's certainly something that I'm going to ask about, my impression is that they would probably take action if they could, so I can certainly get you a better idea of how their hands are tied, or maybe what we have the ability to do on council to kind of grease the wheels on that. So thank you for sharing that, because sounds like a pretty awful situation, and obviously it's impacting all the neighbors. And thank you to also the last gentleman that spoke for doing your independent research, coming prepared, and you're obviously taking this seriously. And so hopefully we're going to follow up on our end and see if we can get some more information on that. So thank you all for showing up and for sharing your input. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Debbie Dahlman, and I live at 1814 South Cedar. I'm here to represent my business as Grace Partners. And we've been doing business at the Sky Terrace for the last 7 years, a restaurant and lounge out there. And I'm like 6th generation. I was born here in Wyoming, so we're pretty much invested in the town. We're here to talk to you guys maybe a little bit about the liquor license that are available. So I just wanted to tell you a little bit about our family. Actually, I said 5 generations of what we wrote, but there's 6 because I had a great-grandson born today. So we got 6 generations invested in this community. We applied for a bar and grill license a few weeks ago, and we love Casper in the downtown area. We're just so interested in that. We're committed to the success of it. The revitalization project that was started a few years ago, we think it's wonderful. We are a part of all of that, the local music that happens downtown. And what we're wanting to open is going to be called the Spotlight Lounge, and it will be a music venue, a restaurant, a bar and grill license is what we're hoping to acquire from you guys. We have a few goals. What we kind of envision for the downtown area is we want to contribute to the renewal work that's already such a success. We like what's happened down here. Probably since the eclipse, we've seen just a lot more business downtown. We have a good rapport going with the other businesses downtown, with Yellowstone Garage, Karen and Jim's, Backwards Distillery. They started a little bit later than we did. So we really want to be part of the team of what's happening in our city. We're looking, well, actually, we've already started renovation projects on 128 East 2nd, is that it? And it was the old Woolworths building. It's a historical landmark here in town. And we've seen a lot of those projects kind of go to the wayside places getting, redone and remodeled. And so we feel like we've lost part of our history, and we think that we have a chance. It's important to us to go in. We've already spoken with some of the people from the local historic, the National Historic District. They've come and talked to us about it, and they're pretty excited about what we hope to do down there. We'll keep a lot of what the counters, the original counters, the backdrops and everything. We're keeping it as close as we can in that particular place. We're music people, And so that's important to us. A few years ago at the Sky Terrace, we partnered with the Wyoming Blues and Jazz Society, and they were bringing their national, international artists in to do shows there every month, and we loved it. The blues is kind of one of those dying arts that seems to be, we're trying to help keep that alive. And they folded their organization about 2 years ago, I think, and so we've just carried on that project, and we've been pretty successful at it. We really have. We're committed to still bringing top-notch entertainment to our city. Local bands. Another thing that we have been doing is thinking about the next generation coming up. A lot of our young musicians have a hard time finding places to play. And we're a little bit older. We like to kind of mentor the younger people. And so to give them a place to play to is going to be pretty important to us. We can provide the stage, you know, the lighting, a lot of the stuff they're going to need. We have a goal to provide approximately 18 jobs for local residents. That's an estimate right now, but we're going to need a workforce to help us out there. We are committed to adhering to the regulations revolving around the bar and grill license. It's, as I understand, it's 60% of total revenue being food. And so we have some ideas on that. We're thinking gourmet hot dogs. Nobody has gourmet hot dogs here in town, so we'd have that and some other things. We have some good ideas that might draw a lunch crowd into our place. We feel like we're pretty capable of finishing up this project, which I said we're already started. We got all of our kitchen equipment sitting on the dance floor. We've been painting. We're pretty deep into this project, and we have 7 years of experience at the Sky Terrace. And when we went out there, somebody said, you know, nobody's ever made it out there, don't you? And I said, I know that. But we went in and we have made it through the whole thing, through COVID, through all of it. We're still a thriving business, and so we think that we can bring that to the downtown area too. I think that's about all I have to say. We just ask that you consider awarding us one of the bar and grill licenses that are up. And I want to thank you for your time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Debbie Snell. I live at 3961 East 20th Street in Casper. And I'm a weekly volunteer out at Metro. I've been there for 12 years. I primarily work with the dogs, walk dogs out there. And I'm seeing a huge need for quarantine space. There is not enough space within that building to adequately quarantine sick animals that come in with contagious diseases, and also kittens and puppies that are not vaccinated. One of the officers addressed to me a few weeks ago that her and another officer have even taken home litters of kittens to quarantine in their own homes. With the previous manager, there was a space put in the back, but there is no ventilation to that space, so it cannot be used. Sometimes they use the euthanasia room, which really isn't a very good space for quarantining, just for that reason in itself. So mostly I'm just here to say space needs to be added onto that building. It really does, for that reason alone. I've also seen mother dogs come in and have their pups, and then eventually, due to loss of space, they have to be moved out to the general area, and also kittens, which, since they are not vaccinated, they should never be in a general area, just because of exposure to other diseases that could be possible. And that's just mostly what I wanted to talk about. I know the building is small for our community. I know a lot of people would love to see a new building, but I know financially that's difficult. But there is room for expansion in different directions on that building, and quarantine space would really benefit it. It would, and it would help out the people that work there. And I wanted to say one thank you to Liz Becker and Rotary Club. I walk dogs, and it's usually been up on the road, which is really not the safest place. They put in a dog path, a very nice dog path, that's made it much safer, and there's no snakes. Ew. Which there's been a lot of snakes up there with this hot season. So thank you, Liz, and to Rotary Club. And that was really just what I wanted to talk about.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor Pacheco.
Just really quick, Debbie, I just wanted to say thank you. You've been doing this for a long time out at Metro. And I know we've chatted from time to time on different issues, but thank you for your committed efforts to do that. And I know that looking at trying to put on, I think it's a needed it's a needed addition to the metro for the quarantine. And so I think the manager would look at that, and if there is funding to be able to do something like that, which I know he would do it if he could at this moment. But I do want to say thank you for your committed efforts to Metro and the animals, and especially the dogs. So I know you've been doing it for a long time.
Enjoyed it over the years. And I wanted to speak up for the kennel techs and the officers out there. Many of them have addressed this concern and this need. So I just wanted to be a voice for them too. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address council? Okay. Please read the consent agenda titles.
Establishing August 3rd, 2021 as a public hearing date for consideration of the following 4 items. Item 7A1A, zone change of the Back 9 Addition PUD planned unit development to R2 1-unit residential, R3 1 to 4 unit residential, and C2 general business. Item 7A1B, a vacation replat and zone change creating the Trails West Estates No. 5 Addition. Item 7A1C, a new bar and grill liquor license for Wyoming Downs Off-Track Betting 12 LLC, doing business as Wyoming Downs OTB 12, located at 1121 Wilkins Circle. Item 7A1D, new bar and grill liquor license for Mouthful LLC, doing business as Mouthful, located at 136 East 2nd Street. And item 7B, establishing August 17th, 2021 as a public hearing date for consideration of the Board of Equalization for the purpose of considering an assessment role for local assessment district number 157, which is Arrowhead Road and Jade Avenue roadway improvements.
The chair would entertain a motion to, by minute action, establish the public hearing dates just read.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Cathy, second by Councilman Gamroth. Any abstention or nay votes?
I'd like to abstain from item A, 1C, and D, please.
And I will abstain from A1A and A1B.
I will abstain from A1A and A1B.
Please cast your votes. Please record the vote.
With the abstentions of council members Pollock, Ingebretson, and Mayor Full noted, motion passed.
I now declare the public hearing open for the consideration of the triennial International Building Code updates. Mr. City Attorney, do you have any exhibits?
Thank you, Mayor. 2 exhibits tonight. Exhibit number 1, correspondence from Liz Becker to J. Carter Napier dated July 7, 2021. And exhibit number 2, affidavit of publication, is published in the Casper Star Tribune dated June 22, 2021.
Mr. City Manager, do you have a report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This is the city's opportunity to consider the adoption of the 2021 International Building Code, primarily because the state of Wyoming has recently adopted this set of regulations and updates and so on as well. And so pursuant to state law, cities and towns have that obligation to consider this on a formal basis as well, for the chance to adopt it into its code pursuant to statutory requirement to do so at the local level. This is a process that takes place every 3 years. And so, like was mentioned in the work session before, we probably will be addressing this again in 3 years when the new revisions come out and the state potentially considers that as well. And so, unfortunately, this is not a discussion that we'll be able to pass and then be done with potentially for the next 10 years, as much as we would all probably like that. So anyway, with that, Mr. Mayor, tonight is the public hearing and the first reading of a 3-reading process for this consideration.
All right, council will now listen to public comment. Public hearing comments are limited to 5 minutes, and no duplication of speakers will be allowed. At this time, I'd ask those individuals who wish to speak in favor of the issues involving the code updates, please approach the lectern. All right, at this time, I'd ask those individuals who wish to speak in opposition to the issues involving the code updates, please approach the lectern. There being no one to speak for or against the issues involving the code updates, I now declare the public hearing closed. Please read the ordinance by title only.
Item 8A1A, an ordinance amending certain sections of Chapter 15.04 of the Casper Municipal Code and adopting the 2021 edition of the International Building Code. Item 8A1B, an ordinance amending certain sections of Chapter 15.02 of the Casper Municipal Code and adopting the 2021 edition of the International Residential Code. Item 8A1C, an ordinance amending certain sections of Chapter 15.20 of the Casper Municipal Code and adopting the 2021 edition of the International Mechanical Code. Item 8A1D, an ordinance amending certain sections of Chapter 15.24 of the Casper Municipal Code and adopting the 2018 edition of the International Plumbing Code. This title has a scrivener's error and should state the 2021 edition of the International Plumbing Code. Item 8A1E, an ordinance amending certain sections of Chapter 15.18 of the Casper Municipal Code and adopting the 2021 edition of the International Fuel Gas Code. Item 8A1F, an ordinance amending Section 15.06.020 of the Casper Municipal Code and adopting the 2021 edition of the International Existing Building Code. And item 8A1G, an ordinance amending certain sections of Chapter 15.40 of the Casper Municipal Code and adopting the 2021 edition of the International Fire Code.
Chair would entertain a motion to approve on first reading the ordinance just read.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Vice Mayor Pacheco, second by Councilwoman Lutz. As we go into discussion, if I could ask Mr. Elston if he could maybe tell me how many changes were made, if he knows. Just a summary of how many changes were made from the last building code, International Building Code, and then this one, just to kind of give us an idea of how many changes there are.
Mr. Mayor and City Council, there were actually the significant changes in the building codes, including all the codes just read. There are 816 pages of significant changes. That is available to purchase through Amazon or through iccsafe.org. We do purchase those ahead of time, and in our annual letter to all the contractors, we discuss those significant changes that are going to adversely affect the cost of construction in Casper. These codes from 2018 to 2021 do not adversely affect the cost of construction. We did at one time, and we previously discussed in work session, the thermal envelope of a building being increased by the energy efficiency code in the building code. But upon further study, the only change in that is going to be that the blow-in insulation in the attic will have to be increased by 3 inches. And that is the only change in that. Most of these changes are due to new products, and then what happens with the workmanship with the new products is why these codes need to be updated every 3 years. And a lot of it also is definition and for clarity. So to take the 2018 code and try to compare it to the 2021 code would be very difficult for the layperson. That's why you have a staff that we go through these codes and make sure that we administer them according to their intent, and that they do not jeopardize the safety of the public, plus also that they don't adversely affect the cost of construction. So that is what we do.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Councilman now.
If I remember correctly, it's when we first started talking about it, there's a significant cost in upgrading the R value in the walls also, is there not?
There is not. That is what it looked like it would be, but when I compared to the last codes, the last code change for the R values in the walls was in 2006. So the codes for now, those R values are going to stay the same in the exterior walls. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further discussion?
I've already said mine.
Okay. All right, any amendments? Any abstention or nay votes? Please cast your vote.
Do we need to wait for?
Are we okay to? Okay, please record the vote.
All members voting aye, motion passed.
I now declare the public hearing open for the consideration of the changes to Municipal Code Chapter 5.08 alcoholic beverages. Mr. City Attorney, do you have any exhibits?
Thank you, Your Honor. One exhibit number 1, correspondence from John Henley to the Casper City Council and J. Carter Napier, dated July 13, 2021.
Mr. City Manager, do you have a report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. The effort in front of you tonight is, again, really to try to make local ordinance consistent with state statute. There have been a lot of changes over the years as it relates to the statutes managing alcohol and the sale of alcohol and so forth in Wyoming. Lately, with regard to the changes you're seeing tonight, they've been primarily around a few what I would consider major differences, and that is with regard to delivery and the use of extending sales outside of the building, if you will. For retail license holders and others. The definition of restaurants and those who qualify for restaurant licenses, of which cities and towns in Wyoming have an unlimited amount to disperse, and as it relates to the definition, if you will, of dispensing rooms and how those can be considered. There's a number of other changes and those kinds of things. Again, the impetus behind this was to try to get local ordinance here in Casper consistent with state statute and the changes that have been made in the recent past.
Okay. Council now listen to public comment. Public hearing comments are limited to 5 minutes and no duplication of speakers will be allowed. At this time, I'd ask those individuals who wish to speak in favor of the issues involving changes to the municipal code pertaining to alcoholic beverages to please approach the lectern. At this time, I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in opposition to the issues involving changes to the municipal code pertaining to alcoholic beverages to please approach the lectern. There being no one to speak for or against the issues involving changes to the municipal code pertaining to alcoholic beverages, I now declare the public hearing closed. Please read the ordinance by title only.
An ordinance updating and amending certain sections of Chapter 5.08 of the Casper Municipal Code.
Chair would entertain a motion to approve on first reading the ordinance just read.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Cathy, seconded by Councilwoman Lutz. Discussion? Any amendments? Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With Council Member Pollock having recused herself, motion passed.
Please. I now declare the public hearing open for the consideration of the changes to Municipal Code Chapter 10.64, scooters. Mr. City Attorney, do you have any exhibits?
Thank you, Mayor. One exhibit number 1, correspondence from John Henley to the Casper City Council and J. Carter Napier, dated July 16, 2021.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This particular ordinance has to do with the business option that has become available lately in terms of leasing scooters, if you will, to riders who are looking for transportation alternatives around certain key elements of our segments of our community. The problem that we had initially was that our ordinance conflicted with this type of business offering. And so we have in front of you tonight a first attempt, if you will, on a formal basis with regard to ordinance changes that allows for this type of business offering for members of our community. In this circumstance, however, the difference is that indeed the offering of this nature does assume and require that the use of public space is critical, not only for transportation means, but in terms of also of storage means as well. And so consequently, some discussion needed to be had in that regard. The other most significant change, in my opinion, is with regard to where these types of conveyances can actually be taken advantage of. In the downtown area primarily, a number of changes were necessary for those corridors to be used by these types of alternatives. And so you have in front of you ordinances that modify a number of existing laws and so on in order to allow for and accommodate dockless scooters, e-scooters if you will, to be used by our citizens on a lease basis throughout, again, many segments of our community, the downtown notwithstanding. And so with that, Mr. Mayor, we understand as well the council would like to see this on this reading process tonight, of which is your first, to take place on a modified basis so that you will see 3 readings on a 3-week successive basis unless council otherwise directs.
Okay. Thank you. Council will now listen to public comment. Public hearing comments are limited to 5 minutes and no duplication of speakers will be allowed. At this time, I'd ask those individuals who wish to speak in favor of the issues involving changes to the municipal code pertaining to scooters, please approach the lectern. At this time, I'd ask those individuals who wish to speak in opposition to the issues involving changes to the municipal code pertaining to scooters to please approach the lectern. There being no one to speak for or against the issues involving changes to the municipal code pertaining to scooters, I now declare the public hearing closed. Please read the ordinance by title only.
An ordinance amending certain sections of Chapter 10.64 of the Casper Municipal Code.
Chair would entertain a motion to approve on first reading the ordinance just read.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Councilmember Pollak, second by Councilman Nell. Discussion. Councilman Gamero.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm currently supportive of everything in this amended ordinance except, again, as I mentioned in the pre-meeting, still have hesitations about the dockless scooters. Spoken to many community members, including the chair of the Metropolitan Planning Organization, and they have concerns about what the ramifications of this could be. And in my independent research, of which I've done several hours on this topic, I've come across planning documents for municipal governments as far as guiding them on their micromobility ordinances and increasing that in their communities. And several occasions I found that the planning process should start with the identification of a problem that something like this would solve. And currently I don't think we have a problem downtown. We're having what I would consider a best case scenario in our downtown. We, people are out and about, going to events, showing up to concerts in the thousands. We passed the open container ordinance, and that seems to be going really well. And so we're having a really great year, CNFR and everything. Our community's having an amazing year, I think much better than we expected year post-COVID. And so I wouldn't want to potentially throw a wrench in the gears on any of that and ruin any of that momentum by getting into something that we haven't done enough research on or don't have enough observable kind of examples of similar markets across the country. And so for that reason, I think I'm going to be advocating that we remove dockless scooter for hire from this ordinance change because, again, I don't think we have enough research or information to support doing it at this time this quickly. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Pacheco.
Thank you. I'm going to, obviously, we have 3 readings, of course, and we're going to be having more discussions and would imagine that there might be a few more people coming in the next few weeks. maybe to speak for or against it. So I think we're going to hear a little bit, and so be able to have that conversation will help solidify that. I'm in support of this, and I know that when we head down that road, and I understand where Councilman Gamroth is coming from and understand his concerns, I'm also going to hopeful that it's going to be somewhat a good idea for our community downtown. I think it might be an opportunity for us to continue to move forward in how we're continuing to develop our downtown and having an access to people. I also hope that if things do go awry, we know that we can make changes to that. We've built that into our contract. We know what we can do with that. So I'm in support of this. And I know probably in the next few weeks we'll probably hear for a few more people that are probably sharing the same sentiment as Councilman Gamroth. So I'm going to be in support of it today. Thank you.
Councilman Nell.
I'm definitely in support of it, and I think when it comes to our downtown, I think you're going to see an even more deeper presence of people there and their ability to get there, since parking is such an issue down there anyway. And apparently people don't know we have a parking garage because. You know, I don't know what the story is there, but nonetheless, I think this is great. I've been to several big cities where I've used these myself. They're amazing. They're a fun way to get around, and I think it can only help our downtown. As far as Mr. Gamroth and what a great year Casper's having, I absolutely agree, but I think this will even help it along just a little more. And I would like to offer an amendment, but I'll wait till we get to that part.
Any other discussion? I do want to kind of throw a wrench in this and ask you a question, Mr. City Manager, but I remember last year during COVID, we had restaurants that were talking about wanting to move tables out onto the street. Even go back to, we had a discussion in the last couple of years about restaurants being able to have patios out on the street. How is parking scooters any different than allowing tables or patios in front of businesses?
Mr. Mayor, if I remember correctly, the city also allowed for adjacent places, parking spaces, I should say, downtown to be used temporarily for sort of a stop and go, pick up to go orders and get back out on the street to go back home with those carryouts. And so, yeah, the city council has tried to be flexible over the years where they can in terms of allowing the public space to be used for various purposes, particularly in the downtown area where we're in a sort of a zero lot line configuration, and there's really no distinction between private ownership or I should say buffer between private ownership and public ownership. Your question is along the lines of how, in fact, the city council came out with respect to allowing restaurants to use patio space in front of their buildings, and the council has taken that on in a couple different ways. In one circumstance, the council has allowed for a lease to take place through a license wherein a front stoop was constructed so that the public could have a safer access out into the public corridor. In some cases, the council has allowed for temporary use of cafe-style seating, during the summer, so to speak, for certain businesses and so on. But I'm not aware where the council has allowed for a full-blown unequivocal use of sidewalk corridor for private purposes outside of a situation where those arrangements are premeditated and done so under formal bases like a lease or like a license arrangement. And so with that, Mr. Mayor, I hope that gets to the heart of what you're asking.
Yeah, it does. Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, amendments. Councilman Nell.
So I did the math. Right now we have scooters in Cheyenne and Rock Springs, and we have the figures for those. So if we just base it on 100 scooters, Rock Springs pays, looks like $5 per scooter per year. They pay a flat $500 fee. So based on 100 scooters, that's a $5 per scooter fee yearly. Rock Springs, on the other hand, pays a $200 annual fee and then $5 per scooter, which brings their annual permit for their scooter to $7. So we're proposing in the ordinance $9,500, and I'd like to see us just put a $50 fee on the scooters, and that's $5,000. So compared to Cheyenne and Rock Springs at $700 and $500, we'd be at $5,000. So we're still enhancing the city plenty compared to the other cities in Wyoming. And I think we're being more fair and allowing for more competition in this area by offering a $50 fee, permit, annual fee. That's my amendment.
So your amendment you're proposing is to change the fee schedule to $50 per scooter?
Yes, sir.
Okay, do I have a second on that?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Pop. Discussion? Councilman Gamroth.
Thank you, Mayor. I haven't heard, or I don't think we've heard yet, as far as related costs, associated with signage, or from the chief about what he thought would be, the cost of enforcement for some of these things. And so, another reason for my concern is, what was that $50 a scooter? And so if we had 100 scooters, $5,000, I wonder, does that even cover the cost of signage and enforcement? And is the city left in the black after that? That's a question I would have. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, so cast your vote on the amendment that's on the floor.
Nope.
Blame Sean.
Dang it, Sean.
Please record the vote.
With council members Pacheco, Gamroth, Ingebretson, and Mayor Friel voting nay, motion fails.
Okay. Any other amendments? Councilman Gamroth.
Thank you, Mayor. As I stated earlier, I'm comfortable with everything else in this ordinance other than the dockless scooter permit for hire. I think we're moving too quickly on it, and I don't see any reason to gather more information this year and wait until next, because again, I don't think we have a problem downtown. We have a very small downtown, still easily traversed by walking, and again, in combination with some of the things I mentioned earlier, as well as the issues that we're having with youth downtown on Thursdays and stuff. I joked at our last meeting about mobilizing those kids, but it's actually kind of a legitimate concern of mine. I hope they don't exploit these scooters and continue their antics that they're contained at David Street Station right now and spread that all across the downtown area. So I would like to offer an amendment to remove the dockless scooter for hire portion of this ordinance. Thank you.
Okay, so on the table is removing the dockless scooter for hire portion of the ordinance. Do I have a second? Okay, no second. All right, back to any other amendments. Councilwoman Ingebretson.
So in a sense, I do agree with Mr. Nail that reducing the fees down, I think that $50 per scooter is too low. And so I do think that we need to have some type of an annual fee just to kind of have a contract with them, because all the cities do have an annual fee. And so I do think that it's important to do the annual fee. So I am still proposing that we keep the $3,000 annual fee and then reduce the scooters down to $50 a scooter.
Okay, so the amendment on the floor is $3,000 annual fee for scooters and then $50 per scooter. $3,000 for all the scooters and then $50 per scooter. Do I have a second? Okay, no second. Mr. City Manager, do you have something?
Mr. Mayor, I was going to bring something up during the discussion phase. I didn't mean to get my hand up too quick there.
Oh, that's okay.
Sorry about that.
All right.
Thank you.
Any other amendments? Okay, please cast your vote on the original. And please record the vote.
With Councilmembers Engebretson and Gamroth voting nay, motion passed.
Okay, on the agenda is a public hearing for a new bar and grill liquor license for Grace Partners LC, doing business as Spotlight Lounge, located at 128 East 2nd Street. This application is one of three the City of Casper received for 2 available bar and grill liquor licenses. At the July 13th, 2021 City Council work session, council members supported having all 3 applications considered by public hearing on the August 3rd, 2021 council meeting. The chair would entertain a motion to, by minute action, postpone this public hearing for a new bar and grill liquor license for the Spotlight Lounge to August 3rd, 2021.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Cathy, second by Councilman Gamroth. Please cast your vote. And please record the vote.
With Councilmember Pollock abstaining, motion passed.
Please read the ordinance on second reading by title only.
An ordinance approving the vacation and replat, creating the Kensington Heights Addition Number 4 subdivision.
Chair would entertain a motion to approve on second reading the ordinance just read.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Pollock, second by Councilman Gamroth. Council will now listen to public comment. Public comments are limited to 5 minutes and no duplication of speakers will be allowed. Okay, any discussion? Any amendments? Please cast your vote. And please record the vote.
With Councilmember Engebretson and Mayor Friel abstaining, motion passed.
Please read the consent resolutions by title only.
Item 10A1, consent to sublease a wireless communication facility located at 1903 North Poplar Street. Item 10A2, a contract with Visit Casper for the marketing of the 40-year anniversary of the Ford Wyoming Center. Item 10A3, a grant award from the Wyoming Office of the Attorney General Division of Victim Services. Item 10A4, a lease agreement with the Hockey Club for use of the Casper Ice Arena. Item 10A5, release of certain local assessment district liens. Item 10A6, an agreement with the Natrona County, Wyoming for juvenile detention services. Item 10A7, a vacation and replat creating the Glendale Addition Number 2. And item 10A8, a contract with Wyoming Signs LLC to wrap up to 23 transit buses.
Chair would entertain a motion to adopt the consent resolutions just read.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Gamroth, second by Councilwoman Lutz. Mr. City Manager, would you like to make a comment on any of the items? Okay. Any abstention or nay votes? I'll abstain from 10A7.
Me too.
Please cast your vote. And please record the vote.
With the abstention of Councilmember Engebretson and Mayor Friel noted, for item 10A7, motion passed.
Okay, at this time, we ask council members to bring forward relevant concerns or items of interest. Councilman Nell.
Nothing. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Councilman Cathy.
Ditto.
All right. Councilwoman Lutz.
Nothing tonight.
Councilmember Pollock.
Nothing, thank you.
Councilwoman Engebretson.
Nothing tonight.
Councilman Gamroth.
Thank you, Mayor. Y'all must be donating your time to me this evening, and I appreciate it, because I got a couple things. Had a DDA board meeting last week. They're doing very well with fundraising, having a very good year. Whole summer event schedule planned. Tonight was the farmers market. Tomorrow is fitness classes, 6 o'clock and 8 o'clock, or 6 o'clock and 9 o'clock in the morning, and then a John King concert Friday evening. Wanted to give a huge shout out to Gala's Greenhouse. They do the planters around the downtown area, and my understanding is that they do that at cost and donate a lot of cost of labor. So they are very generous, and so you can thank them for all the pretty flowers and stuff downtown. Thank you very much to Gala's Greenhouse. Had a Casper One board meeting today. They invited me, and so I went. They're continuing to move forward with their plan. Spoke about the importance of having high quality video news in our area, and so good luck to those guys as they continue working out that plan. Attended the WAM conference last week, Wyoming Association of Municipalities. Got to hear from panelists like Cindy Delancey from the Wyoming Business Council, Christy Ucines, the state auditor, and several legislators were there on panels, and so it was a really great event. Most of the mayors from around the state and various other council staff and representatives were present. I learned a lot, and so thank you to WAM for putting that on, and very thankful that I could attend. And then lastly, just wanted to thank the Casper Police Department for their press conference last Friday, for sharing all the information, for sharing the webcam footage, and just being very transparent about the officer-involved shooting in May. I think it's obvious that our community appreciates that transparency, and I know I certainly do as well. So thank you to them for their service, but also for their transparency and good communication with our community. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Pacheco.
Thank you. Only one thing to report. Last Friday had our LGBTQ council meeting, which was good. So they will, which was great, and they will actually be doing a presentation for our work session next week. So I'll look forward to them presenting what they've been working on, and they have some recommendations, which one of the reasons why we helped create that council for recommendations on how to continue to make Casper a better place for everyone. So looking forward to that. Saw a little glimpse of it. So it's going to be a good presentation for everybody. So thank you.
The only thing I need to add tonight is, so we had a regional water board meeting today, and I had discussions with city manager earlier this evening. Just to let everybody in the public know, there's not a water crisis in town. What we have is we have a chemical, and Mr. City Manager or Councilman Cathy, the ferric. Ferric chloride. So it is a compounding agent. It basically takes the sediment out of the water itself and helps purify it. The problem being is the supplier of that, they're having issues at their manufacturing facility where they've had a failure there. So it's not a matter of not having supply. We just have to go to great lengths of getting supply here. So we're trying to conserve the amount that we have on hand, and so that's why we've asked the public to cut back on watering and basically just save it and help save our supply until the plant can get back up and running and we can get a normal shipment coming in. So this is not a long-term thing. It's not a crisis situation where we're going to run out of water tomorrow. It's one of those things we're asking you to conserve so that we don't run into issues in case something else were to happen. So just to put that out there, it's there's nothing that's happened to our plant. It's just a matter of supply and demand, just like if you tried to get into plants right now. Everything's kind of backlogged, and it is what it is. So, all right, that's all I really had for tonight. So the next meeting of the City Council will be a work session to be held at 4:30 p.m. Tuesday, July 27th, 2021 in the council meeting room, and a regular council meeting to be held at 6 p.m. Tuesday, August 3rd, 2021 in the council chambers. A notice of an executive session to take place at this date and during this meeting was given. We have a matter to discuss regarding personnel. Therefore, the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn into executive session, and at the conclusion of that executive session to reconvene this regular meeting solely for purposes of adjournment of this regular meeting.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councilman Nell, second by Councilman Cathy. There being a majority of members present, a motion to adjourn into executive session having been moved and seconded, and that motion requiring a 2/3 majority of the council present. Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
All members voting aye. Motion passed.
A greater than 2/3 majority of the council present voted in favor of the motion. We are hereby adjourned into an executive session.